For 15 years, I took painkillers like they were part of my daily diet. Morning stiffness, knee burning, restless nights, I thought this was just how aging worked. Until one day, at 74, I stumbled upon a turmeric ritual so simple, I almost ignored it. But what happened next changed everything. My body softened. My sleep deepened. And for the first time in years, I went a week without pills. This is how it all started. Part 1. Living in the grip of daily pain. I don't remember exactly when the pain started. Maybe it was my early 60s, a dull ache in my lower back when I stood too long. Then came the stiffness in my fingers, like rusted hinges that refused to bend. It wasn't dramatic at first, just enough to make everyday things, turning a doorknob, buttoning a shirt, getting out of a chair, feel like a quiet battle. By the time I turned 65, I was waking up every morning with knees that felt like they'd been hit with a hammer. Walking from the bedroom to the kitchen felt like crossing a football field. My mornings started not with tea or meditation, but with painkillers. Over-the-counter stuff at first, ibuprofen, acetaminophen. Then prescriptions followed, naproxen, celecoxib, even a short flirtation with tramadol during the worst flare-ups. Doctors gave it a name, osteoarthritis. Wear and tear, they said. Part of aging. Some suggested light exercise. Others recommended cortisone shots, but I couldn't stand the idea of needles in my knees every few months. So, like many my age, I leaned harder into medication. It became a routine, 2 pills with breakfast, 1 with lunch, maybe another before bed if the pain spiked. I thought this was how life was now. Part 2. Side effects that creep in quietly. At first, the medications helped. They dulled the edge, made the stiffness manageable. But soon, I noticed things weren't quite right. I began waking up with a sour stomach. Some nights, my heart felt like it was fluttering, tiny palpitations that would vanish by the time I got dressed. I blamed it on aging, but then the fatigue started. I was tired in a way I couldn't explain, not sleepy, just drained. I'd sit in a chair and feel like my bones were sinking. My memory became foggy. I'd forget names, appointments, even small routines like whether I'd taken my morning meds. My skin thinned. I bruised easily. My blood pressure crept higher. One afternoon, after I forgot my granddaughter's birthday and spent 10 minutes staring at the microwave trying to remember why I was in the kitchen, I knew something was wrong. I wasn't just in pain. I was losing parts of myself. My doctor said these were common side effects. Long-term NSAID use can harm the stomach, kidneys, even the brain. Maybe we should cut back, he said, but you need something for the pain. I felt trapped, between suffering and side effects. I didn't want more pills. But what else was there? Part 3. A strange recommendation I almost ignored. That same week, my neighbor Gloria mentioned something over the fence, something that, at first, I shrugged off. She was 78, bright-eyed, always in her garden. She said, "Have you ever tried turmeric?" I laughed. "What, like curry powder?" "No," she said. "Real turmeric. The root. Or even better, a turmeric mix with black pepper and ghee. It saved my hands. I haven't taken ibuprofen in 6 months." I thanked her politely and moved on. But later that evening, I looked it up. I was surprised. Study after study, some from Harvard, some from journals I couldn't pronounce, all pointed to turmeric's anti-inflammatory effects. One phrase stuck with me, comparable to NSAIDs in some cases, without the gastrointestinal damage. I'd always dismissed natural remedies. They felt too slow, too soft. But something about turmeric kept echoing in my mind. Maybe it was Gloria's energy. Maybe it was the quiet fear that if I kept on this path, my body would slowly wear out from the inside. That night, I decided to give it 30 days. Part 4, Starting Slow, my first taste of the golden mix. I didn't dive in with fancy supplements. I started with what I could find. A turmeric powder from the local organic store. A small jar of ghee. Freshly cracked black pepper. That first morning, I stirred a teaspoon of turmeric into warm water, added a pinch of pepper, and let a small spoon of ghee melt in. The taste? Earthy. Bitter. Not something I'd crave, but not unbearable. I drank it and waited. Nothing happened. The next morning, I drank it again. Then again on day 3. And so it went. No fireworks. No immediate pain relief. But something felt different. Not in my body, but in the intention. I wasn't just masking pain with pills, I was giving my body something it might actually need to heal. By the end of the first week, I reduced my midday dose of painkillers, not because I was testing turmeric, but because I simply forgot. I wasn't thinking about pain every hour. It was still there, but quieter. In the background. Part 5, The Unexpected Morning Shift. Around the second week, I noticed it. I woke up one morning and stood up from bed, and didn't reach for the table. That sounds small, but for me, it was huge. I'd gotten used to bracing myself, to testing my knees before trusting them with weight. That morning, I just stood up. My joints weren't creaking like before. The stiffness was still there, but it eased quicker. My fingers, usually clenched until mid-morning, could hold a coffee cup without trembling. I started journaling the changes, not because I was sure they were from turmeric, but because they were too consistent to ignore. And beyond the joints, I began sleeping deeper. My mind, once foggy until noon, started to clear earlier. I could hold longer conversations. Remember names. Laugh without feeling fatigued by it. It wasn't dramatic. But it was steady. That's when I began digging deeper, not just into turmeric, but why it was starting to work. Part 6, The Truth About Absorption That Changed Everything. Here's what I found, and what nobody tells you in those wellness ads: turmeric alone doesn't work well. The body struggles to absorb its active ingredient, curcumin. That's why black pepper and healthy fat matter so much. Black pepper contains piperine, a compound that boosts curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%. And ghee or coconut oil? They help transport curcumin through the bloodstream, making it easier to reach inflamed tissues. Most people take turmeric pills with water and wonder why nothing happens. I was nearly one of them. But by creating a bioavailable mix, I'd stumbled onto something powerful. I made small upgrades, switched to organic turmeric with higher curcumin content. Started using warm almond milk instead of just water. Added a pinch of cinnamon for blood sugar balance. And most importantly, I made it a daily ritual. Not once in a while. Not just when I felt pain. Every single morning. And that consistency is what made all the difference. Part 7, The Day I Forgot I Was in Pain. It happened on a Thursday. I was rearranging some bookshelves in the living room, something I hadn't done in years without ending up on the couch, nursing my knees and lower back. But that day, I lifted, bent, and even climbed a step stool. It wasn't until I sat down later with a glass of water that I realized. I hadn't felt pain once. Not in the knees. Not in my fingers. Not in my spine. It was like waking up from a long, foggy dream. I looked around and thought, wait, how long has it been since I took a painkiller? I checked my little pill box. The morning slot was untouched. So was yesterday's afternoon dose. I wasn't just managing pain anymore. I was living without it. Part 8, My doctor couldn't believe the numbers. 2 weeks later, I had a regular checkup. Blood pressure, lower than it had been in 5 years. Inflammatory markers, reduced. Stomach lining, no signs of the irritation that had once been constant. The doctor looked at my chart, then at me. "You've made some real changes," he said. "What's different?" I told him, turmeric, black pepper, ghee. No prescriptions. Just nature, consistency, and a little faith. He didn't scoff. In fact, he nodded. There's real research behind that combo. Most people give up too soon or don't take it the right way. But it looks like you've nailed it. And it wasn't just numbers on paper. I felt it in my joints, my energy, my memory, even in my sleep. Part 9, a new morning routine that heals, not hides. Now, my mornings start differently. Before, it was 2 pills and a slow shuffle to the kitchen. Now, I rise with ease. I prepare my turmeric blend like a ritual: warm almond milk, turmeric, a pinch of pepper, half a spoon of ghee, a touch of cinnamon. I sip it slowly. Sometimes I add ginger for extra anti-inflammatory power. Other days, I add ashwagandha when stress feels heavy. Then I stretch. Just 5 to 10 minutes. Light movement. A walk if the weather's kind. This isn't a quick fix. It's a lifestyle shift. But unlike the pills, this routine gives something back to my body. It's not a cover-up. It's nourishment. I still keep my old pain meds, just in case. But they're dusty now. And every time I see the bottle, I feel grateful that it's not part of my daily life anymore. Because for the first time in decades, I don't wake up thinking about pain. I wake up thinking about the day ahead. Part 10, the mental shift I didn't expect. I started this turmeric journey to help my joints, to walk without wincing, to get through the day without reaching for a pill. But something unexpected happened along the way. My mind changed too. In the early weeks, I chalked it up to coincidence. I was more alert in the mornings, remembering conversations more clearly. I could read without losing track of the paragraphs. I felt present. Before, there was always a fog, that strange, heavy cloud that seemed to hover behind my eyes. It made me forget appointments, stumble over names, lose track of why I entered a room. I'd accepted it as part of aging. But turmeric, as strange as it seemed, was clearing the air. I later learned that curcumin, turmeric's main compound, doesn't just reduce inflammation in the joints, it crosses the blood-brain barrier, helping reduce brain inflammation too. That's why researchers have studied its effects on cognitive decline, depression, and even Alzheimer's. And here I was, feeling the difference firsthand. Part 11, lifting the weight of anxiety and sleepless nights. Sleep was another thing I'd long surrendered. My nights were a mix of tossing, turning, and waking up to shift pillows under sore knees. Sometimes my thoughts would spiral: bills, health worries, or just a vague feeling of dread I couldn't explain. But within a month of consistent turmeric use, sleep returned. First it was subtle: I'd only wake once instead of 3 times. Then, it became solid. 7 hours. Then 8. Dream-filled, healing rest. Even during the day, I noticed fewer flutters of anxiety. Less restlessness. More calm. I wasn't walking around with my shoulders clenched or my breath shallow. Turmeric was calming my entire system, not just my joints, but my nerves, my mood, my internal fire. And the science backed it up. Curcumin is known to boost serotonin and dopamine, the very chemicals responsible for mood stability. It also reduces cortisol, the stress hormone that drains our reserves, especially in older adults. Who knew a simple root could reach that deep? Part 12, my family noticed before I did. Perhaps the most heartwarming part of all this came not from my body, but from my family. My daughter visited one Sunday and said, "Dad, you're glowing. Did you sleep well?" My grandson, who usually rushed past me on his way to the TV, lingered at the table. "Grandpa, you're walking faster than me now," he joked. They noticed before I fully believed it myself. My posture had improved. I was standing straighter. Laughing more. I even started cooking again, something I hadn't done in years because standing for more than 20 minutes was painful. Now, I made my turmeric mix in big batches and gave some away to friends. One of them, a retired nurse, told me, "You don't just look better. You look lighter." That's what healing does. It lifts the weight you didn't even know you were carrying. Part 13, the common mistakes that ruin turmeric's power. Once I began feeling better, I made it my mission to understand why turmeric worked for me, and why it often fails others. The truth? Most people don't take it properly. Mistake 1, taking raw turmeric without support ingredients. Curcumin, the active ingredient, is notoriously hard for the body to absorb. Without black pepper, which contains piperine, and a healthy fat, like ghee, olive oil, or coconut milk, you're only getting a tiny fraction of the benefits. Mistake 2, inconsistency. Turmeric isn't a drug. It doesn't kick in instantly. It's cumulative, it builds up in your system, soothing inflammation layer by layer. Missing a few days here and there may not ruin it, but daily use matters. Mistake 3, low-quality turmeric. Not all powders are the same. Many cheaper options are diluted or contain fillers. I later switched to a high curcumin variety sourced from South India. The color was deeper, the aroma earthier, and the results were stronger. If I had known all this earlier, I could have saved myself years of discomfort. Part 14, the simple recipe that changed everything. So what exactly do I take now? Here's the exact blend I settled on, one I've shared with neighbors, cousins, and even my skeptical brother-in-law. 1 cup warm almond or coconut milk. 1 teaspoon organic turmeric powder, high curcumin content. 1/4 teaspoon black pepper. 1/2 teaspoon ghee or extra virgin coconut oil. A pinch of cinnamon or ginger, optional. I stir it gently over low heat, never boiling, and drink it slowly, usually in the early morning. On tougher days, I add a second cup in the evening. Sometimes I rotate in golden turmeric paste, which I prep once a week and store in a jar. Other days, I pair it with a few drops of turmeric essential oil on aching joints. But the golden drink remains my anchor. It's simple, affordable, and for me, transformational. Part 15, my message for anyone still suffering. I'm not here to sell anything. I'm not a doctor or wellness guru. Just a man who spent far too long accepting pain as normal. If you're waking up sore, stiff, exhausted. If you're tired of medications that only numb, never heal. If you've forgotten what it feels like to move freely, sleep deeply, or laugh without hurting. Please, try this. Give turmeric a real chance. Not for a day. Not as a trendy detox. But as a gentle, daily companion to your healing. Start with 30 days. Make it part of your mornings. And watch, quietly, steadily, as your body remembers what wellness feels like. Because it's not too late. Not at 74. Not at 80. Not even at 90. I thought I was too far gone. But turmeric reminded me, healing is still possible. Part 16, movement without fear. It's now been over 6 months since I began my turmeric ritual. I walk every morning. No limp. No cane. The stairs that once seemed like mountains. I now climb them carrying groceries. I garden again. I tie my own shoes without sitting on the edge of the bed and breathing through the pain. One of the biggest victories? I signed up for a local senior Tai Chi class. And not just to watch, I participated. Fluid motion, calm focus, joint control, all things I thought I had lost forever. When we finished the session, our instructor, a wiry man in his late 60s, came up to me and said, "You move well. You've clearly been working on your mobility." I smiled. I didn't tell him my secret. But I knew what had made the difference. Part 17, freedom from the medicine cabinet. My medicine cabinet used to be cluttered with prescription bottles, muscle relaxers, anti-inflammatories, stomach acid reducers, sleep aids. Now, it holds my turmeric mix, herbal teas for sleep, a magnesium supplement, and a single bottle of backup ibuprofen, mostly untouched for months. When I look at it, I see freedom. I don't live in fear of the next refill. I don't rely on a pill to make it through the day. I don't need alarms to remind me when to medicate, or extra water bottles to protect my stomach lining. I'm not claiming turmeric cured every ache, or that I've become invincible. But what I've gained, resilience, clarity, peace, is more powerful than I imagined. Part 18, a final word to anyone standing where I once stood. If you're listening to this and you're in pain, real, persistent pain that makes you dread mornings and collapse into chairs, I understand you. If you feel like you've tried everything, pills, physical therapy, prayers, and nothing has offered more than a few hours of relief, I was there too. If you're skeptical, if turmeric sounds like just another overhyped fix from the wellness aisle, believe me, I was the biggest skeptic of all. But I gave it a chance. Not once, not casually, but intentionally, daily, patiently. And 6 months later, I am living proof that something so ancient, so humble, so natural, can transform a life. So start. Start small. Start today. One golden cup. One quiet morning. One hopeful decision. Because if it could change my life at 79, it just might change yours, too.